Hello, dear friend. Now you will listen to the answers to the questions that come to mind before going to bed. Please don't forget to subscribe to get the latest sleep facts right away. Lie back and enjoy listening. Which birds run but don't fly? At first glance, it seems strange that a bird may not be able to fly, because it is flight that is most often associated with this class of animals. However, there are several species of birds in nature for which running has become the main way of movement, and wings have lost their main function over time. These birds are called flightless, and most of them feel great on the ground, where speed, endurance, and leg strength are more important than the ability to take to the air. The most famous of them are ostriches. These are the largest modern birds on the planet, living in African savannas and deserts. The ostrich can accelerate to a speed of about 70 kilometers per hour, making it one of the fastest bipedal creatures on Earth. Its long, powerful legs are adapted for running, and its wings serve more to maintain balance and display during mating dances than to fly. Another famous example is the emu, a large bird from Australia. An emu is slightly smaller than an ostrich, but it also runs well and can travel long distances in search of food and water. Its wings are so small that they are hidden in the plumage and almost invisible, and the main load when moving falls on strong legs. Moas, giant flightless birds that completely disappeared after the appearance of humans, lived in New Zealand for a long time. Today, their place in the ecosystem is partially occupied by kiwis, small but very unusual birds. Kiwis almost do not use their eyesight, navigating in the dark with the help of their sense of smell, and run around the forest floor in search of insects. Their wings are so reduced that they are hidden under the feathers and are not visible from the outside. Penguins also belong to birds that do not fly in the usual sense, although formally their wings have been preserved. However, they are adapted not for air, but for water, turning into a kind of fins. Penguins don't run so much on land as they walk fast or slide on their bellies on the ice, but flight is completely lost for them. The reason these birds stopped flying is related to evolution and environmental conditions. Where there were no predators, or where it was more convenient to get food on the ground, the ability to fly ceased to be vital. Flying requires a huge expenditure of energy and a special body structure, including light bones and powerful pectoral muscles. If a bird could survive and reproduce without flying, nature gradually weakened its wings and strengthened its legs. As a result, these birds have become excellent runners, able to defend themselves, run away from danger, or simply move confidently through their territory. Interestingly, flightless birds often grow to large sizes, as they do not need to maintain body lightness to take off. This allowed them to occupy a special niche in nature and become unique representatives of the animal world. They clearly show that evolution does not follow a single pattern, and that a bird does not have to fly in order to remain a bird. Why does a life jacket keep you from drowning? A life jacket seems like a very simple object, but there is an important physical principle behind its operation, thanks to which it saves lives. The main reason why a person drowns is not because they are too heavy, but because their body may lose its buoyancy in the water. The human body is only slightly lighter than water, and as long as there is air in the lungs, it stays on the surface. But if a person is tired, panicking, swallowed water, or lost consciousness, the air leaves the lungs, the body becomes heavier than water, and begins to sink. A life jacket solves exactly this problem by adding extra buoyancy to the body, regardless of the person's condition. There is a material with a lot of air inside the vest. It can be foam, plastic, or inflatable chambers. Air is much lighter than water, so such a vest is pushed up with great force. When a person puts it on, the total body volume increases, while the average density decreases, and the water literally pushes the person to the surface. It is this phenomenon that is called the Archimedes force. It acts on any body immersed in a liquid and is directed upwards. The larger the volume of displaced water, the stronger this force is. A life jacket increases the volume of the body without increasing its weight, and therefore the buoyancy increases dramatically. It is very important that the vest not only keeps the person on the surface, but also tries to turn him face up. Most certified life jackets are designed so that the center of buoyancy is above and slightly behind the person's center of gravity. Due to this, even if a person is unconscious, the vest automatically turns him over onto his back, leaving his face and airway above the water. This is one of the main differences between a life jacket and a conventional inflatable circle or mattress, which do not guarantee the correct body position. Many people think that just knowing how to swim is enough, and you don't need a vest. But this is a dangerous misconception. In a real situation on the water, a person may encounter cold, waves, strong currents, or sudden fright. Cold water, for example, causes a sharp spasm of breathing, and even a good swimmer can lose control of his body for a few seconds. At this point, the life jacket continues to perform its task without human intervention. It requires no effort, does not suddenly deflate, and does not depend on physical fitness. Another reason for the effectiveness of a life jacket is that it distributes buoyancy throughout the body. Unlike objects that hold a person by the arms or under the arms, the vest covers the chest and back, supporting the entire body. This reduces the strain on the muscles and allows a person to conserve energy, which is especially important when waiting for help for a long time. Some models also use bright colors and reflective elements that make a person visible on the water even in bad weather or at dusk. From the point of view of physics, a life jacket is a simple but perfectly thought-out example of using the laws of nature. He does not fight water, but uses its properties, turning a potential danger into a source of support. This is why life jackets are mandatory on ships, boats, and in many water sports. They don't make a person invulnerable, but they give him the most important thing: time, and the opportunity to breathe until help comes, or until he can get out on his own. Why do bees live in hives? The life of bees in a hive may seem cramped and monotonous at first glance, but in fact, it is one of the most perfect existence of collective existence in nature. A hive is not just a house, but a complex living system in which each bee performs a specific role, and together they form a single organism. The main reason bees live this way is related to survival, reproduction, and efficient use of resources. Alone, a bee would be extremely vulnerable to cold, predators, and lack of food, whereas in a large community, the chances of survival increase dramatically. The hive allows bees to maintain a stable temperature, which is especially important for the development of larvae. Even if it's cold outside, bees inside the hive can keep warm by snuggling up to each other and creating heat through muscle movement. In summer, on the contrary, they cool the hive by fanning it with their wings and evaporating water, creating a natural climate control system. Another important reason is protection. The hive is easier to defend than scattered shelters. When a threat appears, bees work together, using scent and movement signals to quickly gather defenders. Collective defense makes even small insects a serious opponent for many predators. But perhaps the most important reason for living in a hive is the joint collection and storage of food. The honey that bees produce is the result of a huge collective effort. An individual bee can only bring a drop of nectar, but thousands of bees working together create supplies that last the whole family for many months, including winter when the flowers are not in bloom. The hive is designed to maximize the use of space. Hexagonal honeycombs allow you to store a large amount of honey and brood while using a minimum of wax. This form is considered one of the most economical in nature, and bees came to it not by chance, but as a result of a long evolution. The social structure of the hive also plays a key role. It has a queen, worker bees, and drones, and each group performs strictly defined functions. The uterus is responsible for procreation. Worker bees build honeycombs, take care of the larvae, collect nectar and protect the hive, and drones are needed to fertilize the uterus. This division of labor makes the life of the hive surprisingly well coordinated and efficient. Interestingly, bees don't just live nearby, but constantly exchange information. They communicate information about the location of flowers to each other through special dances, in which the direction and duration of movements indicate the path to the source of nectar. In a single life, such a complex communication system would be impossible. The hive is also important for breeding offspring. Bee larvae are completely helpless and need constant care, nutrition, and protection. Only in conditions of stable, protected space can they develop normally and turn into adult bees. Thus, the hive is the result of millions of years of evolution, during which bees have adapted to live not as individuals, but as a single community. Their home is both a fortress, a warehouse, a nursery, and a control center, where each bee knows its place and task. That is why life in the hive has become not a limitation for bees, but the main condition for their existence and success in nature. What is famous for Russian caviar? Russian caviar has long been considered one of the most famous and prestigious products in the world, and its fame was not accidental. It is connected simultaneously with natural conditions, history, culture, and a special attitude to food, which has been formed in Russia for centuries. The word caviar most often refers to the caviar of sturgeon fish, primarily beluga, sturgeon, and sturgeon, which lived in the Caspian and Azov seas, as well as in large rivers. These regions have long been the main sources of caviar, and Russia has remained its largest supplier for centuries. Sturgeon fish grow slowly and can live for decades, and their caviar is characterized by large grains, delicate taste, and subtle aroma, which has made it a real symbol of luxury. It is important to understand that Russian caviar has become famous not only as an expensive delicacy, but also as a product with a special status. In the old days, caviar was not always a food for the rich. In Russia, ordinary people also ate it, especially on fast days, since fish and fish products were allowed by church rules. Caviar was salted, added to porridges, pies were baked with it, and used as a source of nutrients. Over time, when the demand for caviar in Europe increased dramatically and the extraction of sturgeon became more difficult, caviar gradually turned into a rare and valuable product. Already in the 19th century, Russian caviar became an obligatory attribute of aristocratic tables in France, England, and other countries, where it was associated with sophistication and wealth. The quality of its processing played a major role in the popularity of Russian caviar. Russian craftsmen have developed special ways of salting, in which caviar retains the natural taste of fish without becoming too salty. This method is called low-salt caviar and is still considered the standard. At the same time, the eggs remain elastic, easily separate from each other, and literally melt in the mouth. It was this taste that became the hallmark of Russian caviar and distinguished it from its counterparts from other regions. It is also important that caviar has become firmly embedded in the culture and image of Russia. It has become a symbol of celebration, abundance, and generosity. Caviar was served at royal receptions, diplomatic dinners, and large family celebrations. In literature and cinema, it is often referred to as a sign of wealth and a special occasion. Even the tradition of eating caviar with pancakes or white bread has become entrenched in Russian culture and has become recognizable all over the world. Over time, caviar has become a kind of gastronomic brand of the country. However, the popularity of Russian caviar is connected not only with the past, but also with the problems of the present. Overfishing of sturgeons in the 20th century led to a sharp decline in their numbers, and today, many species are endangered. Because of this, commercial fishing of wild caviar is prohibited or severely restricted in many countries. Modern Russian caviar is increasingly produced on special fish farms, where sturgeons are raised under controlled conditions. This allows you to preserve traditions and taste without causing irreparable harm to nature. Despite all the changes, Russian caviar still remains a symbol of refined taste and the long history. It is appreciated not only for its high price, but also for its sense of connection with the past, with rivers and seas, with the slow passage of time that it takes to raise a sturgeon and get its caviar. It is this combination of rarity, taste, traditions, and cultural significance that has made Russian caviar famous all over the world. Why are bison called rare animals? Bison are called rare animals not because they were initially small in number, but rather because of the sharp and almost catastrophic decline in their population in the relatively recent past. Until a few centuries ago, bison were one of the most numerous large mammals in North America. Huge herds of these animals roamed the prairies, and their numbers, according to scientists, reached tens of millions of individuals. Bison played a key role in the ecosystem, shaping the appearance of grasslands, spreading plant seeds, and serving as a food source for predators. However, with the arrival of European migrants, the situation began to change rapidly. Bison began to be exterminated en masse, first for the sake of meat and skins, and then for other reasons. Bison meat was used for food, the skins were used for clothing and industrial production, and the bones were used in agriculture. In addition, the destruction of bison was often seen as a way to deprive the indigenous peoples of America of their most important source of food, and thus weaken their resistance. As a result, in a few decades, the once endless herds have practically disappeared. By the end of the 19th century, the number of bison had decreased to several hundred individuals, and the species was on the verge of complete extinction. It was this dramatic moment in history that made bison a symbol of lost wildlife and an example of the consequences of uncontrolled human intervention. Although today bison are no longer on the verge of extinction in the literal sense, they are still called rare animals. The reason is that modern populations are much smaller than historical ones and mostly exist under human control. Most bison live in national parks, nature reserves, and private ranches, where their numbers are carefully regulated. In the wild, without fences and constant supervision, bison are much rarer than before, and occupy only a small part of their former range. In addition, restoring the population proved to be a difficult task. Bison breed slowly, and for a normal life, they need vast territories with suitable pastures. The modern landscape of North America has changed dramatically due to agriculture, cities, and roads, and it has become difficult to find large enough spaces for herds to roam freely. Another problem is related to genetic diversity. After a sharp decline in numbers, many modern bison are descendants of a very small number of surviving animals. This means that the genetic diversity of a species is limited, which can affect the health of populations and their resistance to diseases. Scientists and conservationists are making efforts to preserve and increase the number of bison by creating new protected areas and returning the animals to their former habitats. Nevertheless, this process is slow and requires a long-term approach. Therefore, when bison are called rare animals, they mean not only their current numbers, but also the vulnerable position of the species, depending on human protection and attention. The bison has become a reminder that even the most numerous and powerful species can be threatened if the balance between nature and human activity is disrupted. Its rarity today is not a natural condition, but a consequence of historical events, and a lesson that humanity still continues to comprehend. What is radar? Radar is a device that allows you to detect objects from a distance, even if they cannot be seen with your eyes, and it works by using radio waves. The word radar itself is derived from an English expression meaning detection and range determination using a radio signal, and very accurately conveys the essence of the principle of its operation. The radar emits radio waves into space, which travel at a tremendous speed, almost equal to the speed of light. When these waves encounter an object in their path, such as an airplane, ship, car, or even a rain cloud, they reflect off it and return back to the source. The radar receiver picks up the reflected signal and measures how much time has passed since it was sent. Knowing the speed of propagation of radio waves and the time of their return, the device can accurately calculate the distance to the object. This principle seems simple, but it is the basis of many technologies, without which it is difficult to imagine the modern world. The history of radar began in the first half of the 20th century, when scientists began to actively study the properties of radio waves. Radars played a particularly important role during World War II, when they were used for early detection of enemy aircraft. Being able to spot an approaching threat long before it becomes visible has provided a huge strategic advantage. After the war, radar technology began to develop for peaceful purposes and gradually penetrated into various areas of life. Today, radars are used in aviation to monitor air traffic. Controllers see planes on their screens, determine their altitude, speed, and direction of flight, which allows them to safely manage thousands of flights simultaneously. In maritime operations, radars help ships navigate in fog, at night, or in difficult weather conditions by detecting other vessels, coastlines, and obstacles. The role of radars in meteorology is equally important. With their help, scientists track the movement of clouds, precipitation, and storm fronts. A weather radar can show where rain, snow, or hail is falling and how fast the storm is moving. This makes more accurate weather forecasts and early warnings about storms or hurricanes possible. In everyday life, people also encounter radars, often without even thinking about it. For example, Road radars measure the speed of cars by sending radio waves and analyzing their reflection from a moving car. By changing the frequency of the reflected signal, the device determines the speed at which an object is approaching or moving away. The same effect is used in other fields, including scientific research and industry. Interestingly, radars can vary in wave type and signal processing method. Some work continuously, constantly emitting radio waves, while others send short pulses. There are radars that can distinguish the shape of an object, determine its size, and even the approximate composition of the surface. For example, space radars help study the surface of planets, moons, and asteroids by seeing through clouds and dust that interfere with optical instruments. The main advantage of radar is its independence from lighting and visibility. It works equally effectively day and night, in fog, rain, or snowfall. That is why radar has become an indispensable tool in situations where human senses are powerless. In fact, radar is a way to feel space using radio waves, creating a picture of the surrounding world where vision cannot help. This technology has become one of the examples of how a person has learned to use the laws of physics to expand the boundaries of his perception and make the world around him more understandable and safer. What is the difference between a toad and a frog? Toads and frogs seem very similar at first glance, and many people use these names as synonyms, but there are noticeable differences between them related to appearance, lifestyle, and behavior. Both of these animals belong to amphibians and belong to the same order, but belong to different families, which explains their characteristics. Frogs usually have smooth, moist skin that often glitters and can be colored in bright or saturated colors. This skin helps them breathe, as amphibians partially receive oxygen directly through the surface of the body. Toads, on the contrary, have drier and bumpier skin, covered with small warts. These formations are not at all painful, as is sometimes thought, but serve a protective function. There are glands in the skin of toads that secrete substances with an unpleasant taste or smell that scare away predators. The differences are also noticeable in the physique. Frogs tend to be more slender and agile, with long hind legs ideally suited for jumping. They can make impressive jumps, easily jumping over obstacles and quickly hiding from danger. Toads look more squat and massive. Their legs are shorter, so they rarely jump far, and more often move with a slow gait or short jumps. These features are related to different lifestyles. Frogs most often live near water or right in the water. They prefer ponds, lakes, rivers, and swamps, where they easily find food and can quickly hide by diving into the depths. Toads are more adapted to life on land. They can live in forests, gardens, and even near human habitations, returning to water mostly only during the breeding season. Another difference concerns reproduction. Frog eggs are usually deposited in the water in large lumps, resembling jelly-like clouds. Toad eggs look different. They form long, transparent cords that can be seen among aquatic plants. This difference makes it easy for biologists to determine who exactly laid eggs, even if the animals themselves are not nearby. There is also a difference in behavior. Frogs are more often active during the day and in the evening, while toads often lead a nocturnal lifestyle, going out hunting at night. They feed mainly on insects and small invertebrates, bringing benefits and destroying pests. Despite all the differences, toads and frogs have a lot in common. They are both sensitive to environmental pollution, as their skin easily absorbs harmful substances. Therefore, the presence of these animals is often a sign of the ecological well-being of the territory. In addition, both frogs and toads play an important role in ecosystems, maintaining a balance between the numbers of insects and other small animals. Interestingly, attitudes towards these amphibians vary greatly from culture to culture. Frogs are often associated with water, renewal, and even luck, while toads are sometimes perceived as unpleasant or dangerous creatures, which is largely due to their appearance. However, from a scientific point of view, toads and frogs are equally important and deserve careful treatment. The difference between them is not a question of better or worse, but an example of how closely related species can adapt to living conditions in different ways and occupy their unique niches in nature. What is a periscope? A periscope is an optical device that allows you to observe objects above eye level or behind an obstacle without showing yourself directly. It is best known as a device used on submarines, but in fact, the principle of the periscope is much broader and older than it might seem. His work is based on the simple idea of reflecting light. The light rays coming from the observed object enter the upper part of the periscope, are reflected from a mirror or prism, then pass inside the tube and are reflected again, hitting the observer's eyes. Thanks to this, a person can see what is behind the wall, above the shelter, or above the surface of the water, while remaining hidden. The very name periscope comes from the Greek words meaning to look around or to inspect. The first such devices appeared long before submarines. The simplest periscopes were used back in the 19th century, for example, in trenches during wars, so that soldiers could observe the enemy without raising their heads and risking their lives. Such a trench periscope was an ordinary tube with mirrors at an angle of 45 degrees, but even it significantly increased the safety of observation. The periscope gained its greatest fame with the development of the submarine fleet. A submarine, being underwater, cannot directly see the surface, and it was the periscope that became the eyes of the crew. When the boat rises to a shallow depth, the periscope extends above the water, allowing you to inspect the horizon, detect ships, shore, or other objects. At the same time, the boat itself remains almost completely hidden, which is especially important in military conditions. Modern periscopes are much more complex than their first versions. They are equipped not only with optical systems, but also with electronic cameras, thermal imagers, and sensors that transmit images to screens inside the boat. However, the principle remains the same: getting information about the outside world from a safe location. Interestingly, periscopes are used not only in the military field. They can be found in tanks, armored vehicles, and even architecture. Some buildings and museums use periscope-based mirror systems to direct daylight into rooms without windows, or to show visitors hard-to-reach areas. In children's toys and scientific kits, periscopes are often used to demonstrate the laws of light reflection, helping to visually understand how mirrors and reflection angles work. From the point of view of physics, the periscope is a good example of how to control the direction of light. The mirrors in it are positioned in such a way as to maintain the orientation of the image and minimize light loss. More complex models use prisms, which make the structure more compact and reliable, since the prisms are less sensitive to vibrations and displacement. Thanks to this, the image remains clear even in conditions of movement or shaking. The periscope is also important because it has changed the very approach to observation. He showed that seeing does not necessarily mean being in direct contact with an object. You can stay hidden, behind a barrier, or underwater and still get complete visual information. This idea was later continued in cameras, drones, and other remote surveillance systems. Thus, the periscope is not just a tube with mirrors, but a symbol of engineering resourcefulness that allows a person to expand their capabilities and safely observe the world. He combined the simple laws of optics and practical needs, becoming an important tool in the history of technology and a vivid example of how elementary physical principles can make a huge difference in real life. Who is the giant panda? The giant panda is one of the most recognizable and unusual animals on the planet, which is easily remembered for its black and white color and calm, almost thoughtful appearance. Despite its external softness and toyiness, the panda is a real wild animal and belongs to the family of bears. It lives exclusively in the mountainous regions of central China, where dense bamboo forests create a special, isolated environment. It is this limited range that has largely determined the uniqueness of the panda. For a long time, scientists have been arguing over whether to classify it as bears or raccoons, since pandas have features that are not quite typical of bears. Today, genetic research has definitively confirmed that the giant panda is still a bear, albeit a very specialized one. One of the main features of the panda is its nutrition. Technically, it belongs to predators, but almost its entire diet consists of bamboo. Panda eats it in huge quantities, spending up to 14 hours a day eating. This is due to the fact that bamboo is low in nutrition, and in order to get enough energy, the animal has to constantly chew. To do this, the panda has powerful jaws and wide molars capable of grinding hard stems. In addition, she has a so-called false thumb, a special bone on her front paw that helps hold bamboo shoots like fingers. Despite its apparent clumsiness, the giant panda is good at climbing trees and can move quickly along mountain slopes. She leads a solitary lifestyle and prefers to avoid encounters with her relatives, except during the breeding season. Each panda has its own territory, which it marks with smells and sounds. Reproduction in these animals is quite difficult, and this is one of the reasons for their vulnerability. Females are able to conceive only a few days a year, and the cubs are born extremely small and helpless compared to the size of the mother. A newborn panda weighs only about 100 grams and is completely dependent on the mother's care. In the wild, the survival of cubs requires a calm environment and sufficient food, which makes the species particularly sensitive to environmental changes. The giant panda has become a symbol of rare and protected animals. In the 20th century, the number of these bears declined sharply due to deforestation and the expansion of human activity. Bamboo forests disappeared or fragmented into separate areas, and pandas lost the ability to move freely and find food. Awareness of this problem has led to the creation of nature reserves and programs to protect the species. Today, the giant panda is one of the most famous examples of successful conservation efforts. Her image is used as a symbol of the World Wildlife Fund, emphasizing the fragility of ecosystems and the need to take care of them. Interestingly, pandas play an important role not only as a separate species, but also as part of their ecosystem. By protecting the territories where they live, people simultaneously preserve many other plants and animals that live in the same forests. Thus, caring for a panda benefits entire natural communities. Today, The giant panda remains a rare animal, but its position has become more stable thanks to the efforts of scientists and conservationists. She continues to attract the attention of people all over the world, reminding that even the most unusual and cute creatures depend on the balance between man and nature. The giant panda is not just a bear with an unusual coloring, but a symbol of fragile harmony, which is so easy to break and so difficult to restore. What is an igloo? An igloo is an unusual and recognizable dwelling used by the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, in particular the Inuit, to live in the harsh conditions of permafrost and snowy tundra. At first glance, it looks like a small domed house made entirely of snow, and many wonder how it can be warm inside if the material outside is ice and snow. The secret of the igloo lies in the design features and physical properties of snow. The snow blocks fit tightly to each other, forming a dome that does not let the wind through, and air is preserved between the snow crystals. This air is an excellent thermal insulator, and the temperature inside the igloo can be several degrees higher than outside, even if it is -30 degrees or lower outside. The dome shape is also of practical importance. It ensures an even weight distribution so that snow does not collapse and rain or wind roll down the surface without damaging the dwelling. Inside the igloo, a bed is often made of snow or ice, covered with animal skins on top, which additionally retains warmth and comfort for a sleeping person. Interestingly, an igloo is created relatively quickly and can be a temporary or seasonal dwelling. Experienced builders can build a small igloo in a few hours, which is especially important for hunters or travelers who need shelter for the night in harsh conditions. The size and shape can vary. Small igloos are designed for 1 or 2 people, while large ones are designed for the whole family. A small corridor or tunnel is often made at the entrance to the igloo, which prevents cold air from entering. This corridor acts as a trap for the cold wind. The air coming from outside sinks down, while the warm air inside remains above the couch. Another feature is the ventilation hole at the top of the dome. It allows smoke from the hearth or steam to escape, which is formed during breathing, and prevents the accumulation of carbon dioxide. This thoughtful design makes the igloo safe and cozy, even in the most extreme conditions. The snow and ice used to build the igloo are temporary materials that are easy to find in Arctic regions. Unlike wood or stone, they do not need to be imported from other places, which means that the dwelling can be built in any suitable location. In this sense, igloo is an example of how a person has adapted to life in conditions where the usual materials for construction are unavailable. In addition, the igloo has minimal impact on the environment. After people leave their homes, the snow gradually melts or merges with the surrounding area, leaving no traces and allowing nature to recover. The igloo also plays a social role. Inside it, a sense of comfort, family, and living together is maintained. In traditional Inuit cultures, such dwellings were used not only for sleeping, but also for cooking, storing tools, and conducting rituals. This snow house has become a symbol of human ingenuity and adaptability, the ability to use natural resources wisely and resourcefully. In today's world, the igloo also inspires architects and designers. His principles of thermal insulation, compactness, and rational use of space are used in the creation of temporary shelters, tourist bases, and expedition camps. Thus, An igloo is not just a snow house, but an amazing combination of engineering, knowledge about nature, and practical experience. It shows that a person is able to create comfort even in the harshest conditions, using affordable materials and the laws of physics, turning cold and snow into a reliable and warm shelter. Are donkey and horse related? Yes, the donkey and the horse are related species and belong to the same family, Equidae, which explains their external similarities and many common features in body structure and behavior. However, despite their close relationship, there are important differences between them that make each animal unique. A horse is usually larger, has long legs, a flexible neck, and strong muscles adapted for running fast and carrying significant loads on its back. The donkey is smaller, its body is shorter and more compact, its legs are relatively short, and its musculature is more focused on endurance and the ability to overcome difficult terrain, such as mountain trails or rugged deserts. The difference is also evident in behavior. Horses are social animals that live in herds, with a developed hierarchy, complex forms of communication, and a willingness to cooperate with each other and with humans. Donkeys are more independent, cautious, and thoughtful. They tend to carefully assess the situation before acting, which makes them known as stubborn, although in fact this is a manifestation of caution and a high ability to self-preservation. These animals also have different eating behaviors. Horses in the wild feed on a variety of grasses and plants, while donkeys are able to digest coarser and meager food, surviving where other herbivores might suffer from lack of nutrition. This explains their distribution in desert and semi-desert regions, where other species cannot survive. Despite the differences, horses and donkeys can interbreed, and their hybrids are called mules or mules, depending on the combination of parents. A mule is born from a cross between a donkey and a stallion, and usually has more stamina and strength than a donkey, while maintaining the endurance characteristic of a donkey. A mule is a hybrid of a stallion donkey and a mare horse, which is less common. Hybrids are usually infertile, which is a natural limitation for maintaining species purity. The history of these animals is closely intertwined with human activity. The horse was domesticated thousands of years ago and was used for horseback riding, cargo transportation, and agriculture. The donkey has also served humans for a long time, especially in remote and arid regions. His endurance and unpretentiousness made him an indispensable assistant for people who lived far from fertile lands and roads. Genetically, donkeys and horses have different numbers of chromosomes, which explains the impossibility of complete reproduction in hybrids. Horses have 32 pairs of chromosomes, and donkeys have 31, which, when crossed, leads to a mismatch in cell division and makes mules infertile. From the point of view of physiology, their organ systems are also similar, which allows them to use similar methods of treatment and maintenance. For example, both horses and donkeys are fed hay, grass, and grains, and it is important to take into account individual needs, since donkeys consume food more economically and require less water. In culture and mythology, the donkey and the horse are often mentioned together. The horse symbolizes speed, strength, and freedom, while the donkey symbolizes patience, hard work, and resilience. These associations arose from observing the habits of animals in human life over the centuries. Thus, a donkey and a horse are relatives who share a common evolutionary path and have many similar features, but at the same time they are adapted to different environmental conditions and perform different functions in human life. Their kinship is manifested in anatomy, genetics, and behavior, and the differences make each representative unique and adapted to a particular lifestyle. What kind of tool is made of fur? A musical instrument that is traditionally made using fur is a bagpipe, or, as it is also called in some regions, a pipe with fur. Although the very principle of using fur is found in other wind instruments. The fur serves as an air source that is supplied to the tongues or tubes, creating sound. In the classical sense, an instrument with fur works according to a very simple but ingenious principle. The musician compresses and unclenches the fur, pushing air out of it through special holes where tabs or valves are located. These tabs vibrate under the influence of passing air, and this vibration turns into sound. The strength and timbre of the music depend on the force and rhythm with which the fur moves, as well as on the structure of the instrument and the size of the chambers through which the air passes. Bagpipes have a long history and are found in various cultures around the world. In Scotland, it is known as the Scottish bagpipe and is a symbol of national music, accompanying military marches, folk dances, and celebrations. Other countries, such as Ireland, Spain, France, and Russia, have their own varieties, adapted to local musical traditions and linguistic peculiarities. Interestingly, the use of fur allows the instrument to sound continuously, even if the musician takes a breath. In an ordinary flute or windpipe, air comes only from the performer's lungs, and the duration of the sound is limited by his breathing. The fur acts as an air reservoir. While the musician compresses and unclenches it, the air passes through the tabs, creating a constant sound. This makes it possible to perform long melodies, maintain accompaniment, and create a distinctive, rich timbre that is so recognizable in bagpipes and similar instruments. The design of the bellows also plays an important role in tuning the instrument. In traditional bagpipes, the fur is made from durable animal skin, most often sheep or goat, which is treated and stretched in such a way that air does not escape through the pores. Inside the bellows can be wooden or metal guides, valves and tubes that regulate the flow of air and create the right pressure for the tongues to sound. Working with fur requires a certain technique. Too much compression can lead to a sharp and piercing sound, and weak compression can lead to a weak, barely audible tone. A musician learns to control pressure, rhythm, and amplitude in order to achieve a harmonious sound. In addition to bagpipes, fur is also used in other traditional instruments, such as the accordion and harmonica. In these instruments, bellows serve a similar function as an air source for vibrating the tabs, while each instrument has its own design and sound characteristics. Thus, the fur is not just a part of the body, but a key element without which the tool could not function. He demonstrates how simple mechanics and natural materials can be used to create a rich and expressive musical sound. The history of instruments with fur dates back hundreds of years, and their spread is linked to culture, traditions, and people's need to create music even in environments where other technologies are unavailable. In the modern world, such instruments continue to be used, preserving traditions and a unique sound that cannot be fully reproduced using electronic analogs. The fur instrument is an example of how natural materials and human ingenuity combine to create music that surprises, inspires, and keeps in touch with the cultural heritage of different nations. Where does the Amazon turtle live? The Amazonian turtle is a freshwater turtle found in the Amazon River basin and its tributaries in South America, in countries such as Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador. Its range covers tropical rainforests and reservoirs, where the climate is warm and humid all year round. This turtle is especially adapted to life in an aquatic environment, spending most of its time in rivers, lakes, swamps, and flooded forests. It moves easily, both on water and on land, but mainly uses aquatic ecosystems for nutrition and reproduction. The Amazonian turtle prefers places with slow currents, an abundance of aquatic vegetation, and shelters made of driftwood, rocks, or underwater plants. Such conditions allow her to hide from predators and provide access to food. Surprisingly, the turtle is able to swim and dive to considerable depths using light foot movements and the ability to hold its breath. Its shell, rounded and smooth, reduces water resistance and protects it from predator attacks. During the rainy season, when river levels rise and forests flood, the Amazonian turtle goes out into flooded areas where it finds new food sources and safe places to lay eggs. This period is especially important for breeding, as the water softens the soil and allows the turtle to lay eggs in natural holes on the shore or in elevated areas where they will be protected from strong currents. The diet of the Amazonian turtle is diverse. It is omnivorous and consumes aquatic plants, algae, small fish, insects, and carrion. Such a wide diet allows her to survive in conditions where food resources can vary greatly depending on the season. Interestingly, this turtle plays an important role in the Amazon ecosystem. It promotes the spread of plant seeds by eating fruits and carrying them along waterways, and also regulates the abundance of certain species of aquatic invertebrates. The Amazonian turtle is subject to threats, the main of which is habitat destruction. Deforestation, river pollution, and dam construction are altering natural water systems, reducing the number of available shelters and feeding areas. Turtles are also often captured for trade or consumption, which reduces the population in the wild. International organizations have included the Amazonian turtle in the lists of protected species and have created programs to protect its range. Trapping is prohibited in a number of areas. Natural reserves are being created, and environmental projects aimed at preserving reservoirs and restoring flooded forests are being monitored. The Amazon turtle is well adapted to life in the water, but its survival is closely linked to the preservation of tropical ecosystems. It is sensitive to changes in water levels, pollution, and coastal destruction. Therefore, the protection of water and coastal areas is critically important for the conservation of the species. In addition, this turtle has cultural significance for the indigenous peoples of the Amazon. Her image is found in myths and legends, symbolizing longevity, wisdom, and human connection with nature. It is also used in educational programs, introducing people to the importance of preserving the biological diversity of tropical forests. Thus, the Amazon turtle is not just a freshwater animal, but an important element of the Amazon ecosystem, adapted to life in rivers, lakes, and flooded forests. Its existence shows how living organisms integrate into complex natural systems, and how their preservation directly depends on human care for nature. Who invented the harmonica? The harmonica, also known as the harmonica or mouthpiece harmonica, is one of the most recognizable and simple wind instruments in the world, but its history is surprisingly interesting and multi-step. It is believed that the modern harmonica was invented in the early 19th century in Europe, although prototypes and early versions of wind instruments with tongues existed long before that. The main inventor, who is credited with creating the first commercially successful harmonica, is the German master Mario Schweitzer, but the name of August Buhl is considered more accurate. August Buhl was born in Germany at the beginning of the 19th century and worked as a metalworker and musical instrument manufacturer. In 1821, he created an instrument that combined metal tabs, a wooden body, and a mouthpiece in such a way that the instrument was compact, easy to play, and capable of producing a clear, pleasant sound. It was a turning point in the history of music because the harmonica became available to a wide range of people. They could carry it in their pocket, easily learn how to play it, and use it in a wide variety of musical genres. At the same time as Buell, or almost simultaneously, they were working on their own versions in other countries. For example, similar wind instruments with tongues were created in Austria and the Czech Republic, and in England they experimented with body materials and the shape of the mouthpiece. All these developments have led to the emergence of many varieties of harmonics, differing in the number of tones, size, number of tabs, and system of construction. The basic principle of harmonic operation is that the air passing through the metal tabs causes them to vibrate, creating sound. Different tabs are tuned to different notes, and music is created by simultaneously or sequentially blowing and sucking air through the holes. This makes the instrument surprisingly expressive, allowing you to play melodies, chords, and even mimic the sounds of other instruments. Over time, Buell's invention became widespread throughout Europe, and in the middle of the 19th century, the harmonica began to penetrate into the United States, where it quickly gained popularity. American manufacturers began to improve the design, to improve the metal tabs, body, and mouthpiece, creating a variety of systems, such as diatonic and chromatic harmonics. This allowed the harmonica to be used not only in folk music, but also in classical and jazz genres. One of the most famous manufacturers in the USA was the Hohner Company, founded in Germany in the middle of the 19th century, which is still a leading brand for the production of harmonics. Thanks to these innovations, the tool has become popular all over the world, in Europe, America, Asia, and even Africa. The harmonica has found use in blues, jazz, rock music, folk music, and many other styles. Interestingly, the invention of the harmonica was made possible by a combination of several factors: metalworking skills, knowledge of tongue vibration, and a practical approach to a compact form that is convenient for playing music. This simple but refined instrument allowed people to express emotions, create music on the road and at home, with their family and on stage. Thus, the harmonica, as we know it today, was invented by August Buell at the beginning of the 19th century in Germany. His work marked the beginning of mass production, popularization, and further improvement of the instrument. Thanks to the harmonica, music has become more accessible and mobile, and the instrument itself has become a symbol of folk, jazz, and popular culture, retaining its simplicity, compactness, and expressiveness for almost 2 centuries. What is the difference between a sea turtle and an ordinary one? The sea turtle differs from the common freshwater or land turtle in a number of features related to lifestyle, body structure, respiration, and reproduction, which makes it fully adapted to life in the ocean. First of all, sea turtles have flipper-like limbs transformed into powerful fins that allow them to move quickly and efficiently in the water, developing speed and making long migrations. The front fins act as the main propulsion, while the rear fins act as the stabilizer and rudder, which ensures maneuverability and stability when swimming. Common turtles have short and thick limbs designed for walking on land or slow swimming in bodies of water, and they are not capable of long-distance movement. The body of the sea turtle is streamlined. The shell is flat and smooth, which reduces water resistance and facilitates sliding, whereas in ordinary turtles, the shell is domed and performs mainly a protective function, protecting from predators and environmental influences. Sea turtles breathe with their lungs, just like normal ones, but they are able to hold their breath for several hours, which allows them to dive to considerable depths and stay underwater for a long time. Their blood circulation and metabolism are adapted to conserve oxygen, whereas freshwater turtles spend less time underwater and rise to the surface more often. The diet of sea turtles is diverse and depends on the species. Some feed on aquatic plants and algae, others hunt jellyfish, mollusks, and small invertebrates. Their digestive system is adapted to processing marine food and assimilating essential nutrients. Common turtles eat grass, leaves, fruits, insects, and small aquatic animals, and their diet is more limited than that of sea turtles. Sea turtles make long migrations, traveling hundreds and thousands of kilometers between feeding and nesting sites, while ordinary turtles lead a sedentary lifestyle, rarely moving away from their usual body of water. The reproduction of sea turtles is also unique. Females lay eggs exclusively on sandy beaches, often far from water, and often return to their native beaches after years to lay new clutches. In contrast, common turtles lay eggs near bodies of water or on land without making long migrations. Sea turtles play a key role in ocean ecosystems. They regulate the abundance of jellyfish, maintain the health of marine plants, and participate in food chains. Common turtles affect freshwater ecosystems by maintaining a balance of vegetation and the abundance of small animals. Sea turtles are subject to threats from human activity. Ocean pollution, fishing nets, poaching, and beach destruction are reducing their numbers, while common turtles face local threats of habitat destruction and freshwater pollution. Sea turtles have become a symbol of global conservation efforts, and their unique adaptations, flippers, streamlined body, ability for long-range migration and specific reproduction, make them one of the most amazing reptiles on the planet. Unlike ordinary turtles, they are almost completely dependent on the marine environment, demonstrating an amazing ability to adapt to life in the water while retaining the characteristic features of reptiles: shell, egg-laying, coldness, and slow development. Who invented neon advertising? Neon advertising, which became a symbol of urban night aesthetics and culture of the 20th century, was invented by French engineer and artist Georges Claude in the early 20th century. Georges Claude was born in 1870 and showed interest in physics, electricity, and gas discharges in his youth, which eventually led him to create the first commercially successful neon light source and advertising device. In 1902, he began experimenting with electric discharge in tubes filled with various gases, and discovered that neon, an inert gas, emits a bright red light when an electric current is passed through it. This discovery became the basis for the creation of neon lamps. The use of these lamps in advertising occurred in 1910, when Georges Claude introduced the first neon signs at the Paris exhibition and on the streets of the city. They created a real sensation due to their brightness, weather resistance, and the ability to create letters and symbols of any shape. Neon advertising made it possible to be visible at night, attracting the attention of passers-by and shoppers, which became a revolution in the field of marketing and outdoor advertising. The principle of operation of a neon lamp is based on the gas discharge effect. A high voltage is created in a glass tube filled with neon or other gases, which ionizes the gas, causing it to glow. Different gases and coatings on the inner surface of the tube produce a variety of colors, from red and orange to green and blue. The tube design allows you to create complex shapes, inscriptions, and drawings, which makes this type of advertising extremely flexible and aesthetically appealing. After Georges Claude developed the first commercially successful neon lamps and signage, Their production quickly spread to Europe and the United States. By the 1920s, neon lights had become a symbol of major cities, especially New York, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas, where they were widely used to decorate streets, cinemas, restaurants, and casinos. Neon advertising influenced not only marketing, but also art. Artists and designers used bright, glowing lines to create visually impressive installations, and photographers and cinematographers captured it as a symbol of modernity and urban aesthetics. Subsequently, new techniques and materials appeared that make neon lamps more durable, economical, and safe. Colored coatings, miniature transformers, and more flexible tubes were developed, which expanded the possibilities of using neon in architecture, decorative lighting, and modern media. Neon advertising has also become a part of pop culture and urban mythology. It is associated with the energy of megacities, nightlife, jazz, cinema, and commerce, creating an atmosphere that is memorable and shapes the visual style of cities. Thus, the invention of neon advertising belongs to Georges Claude, a French engineer and inventor who, at the beginning of the 20th century, was able to combine discoveries in the field of electricity and gas with the commercial needs of society. His developments marked the beginning of the era of glowing urban advertising, which still inspires designers, architects, and artists today, remaining a symbol of technological progress, creativity, and urban aesthetics. What does a grizzly bear eat? The grizzly bear is a large predator of North America, a representative of the bear family, which is omnivorous and has an amazing ability to adapt to a variety of environmental conditions. Its diet is not limited to meat only, although the grizzly has powerful claws and jaws that allow it to hunt large animals. In different seasons of the year, the diet of grizzlies varies significantly, reflecting the availability of resources and natural cycles. In spring, after hibernation, the bear searches for the first plant food, fresh shoots, young leaves, roots, and bulbs that appear on the ground immediately after the melting of snow. These plants contain essential vitamins and trace elements, helping to restore strength and activity after several months of rest. At the same time, the grizzly hunts small animals, rodents, hares, birds, and their eggs. This food is rich in protein and promotes rapid recovery of muscle mass and energy. In summer, and especially in autumn, the bear's diet varies. It consumes berries, fruits, nuts, and mushrooms. Boletus, raspberries, blueberries, and pine nuts become the basis of his diet, providing a high concentration of carbohydrates and fats, which are necessary for the accumulation of subcutaneous fat before hibernation. Fish, especially salmon in spawning grounds, is a valuable source of protein and fatty acids, and the bear is able to hunt it with amazing dexterity, using speed, strength, and reaction to catch fish in river streams. In some areas, the grizzly feeds on carrion, finding carcasses of dead animals or prey from other predators. It also helps to maintain an ecological balance by accelerating the decomposition of organic matter and regulating the number of animals. Despite its strength and size, the grizzly is not exclusively a predator, and its diet demonstrates a high level of adaptability. It can switch between plant and animal food, forage in water and on land, and use seasonal resources. The grizzly uses its keen sense of smell, hearing, and vision to find food. He is able to dig earth and snow, turn over rocks and logs, climb trees in search of berries and nuts, and deftly fish in rivers. His feeding behavior indicates high intelligence, patience, and the ability to assess risks, which is necessary for successful hunting and survival in the wild. Near human settlements, the grizzly sometimes feeds on waste or abandoned food, which can lead to conflicts. But in natural conditions, its diet is balanced and provides all the necessary substances: proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. The grizzly's diet is closely related to seasonal rhythms. In spring, plant and small animal foods predominate. In summer and autumn, berries, nuts, and fatty fish. And in winter, the bear hibernates using accumulated fat. This cycle allows you to survive in harsh climatic conditions and an unpredictable habitat. Thus, the grizzly bear feeds on everything that is available in its range, from shoots and berries to fish, small animals, and carrion. Its omnivorousness, adaptability, and ability to use a variety of food sources make it one of the most successful and resilient predators in North America, able to survive in extreme conditions and maintain the balance of the ecosystems in which it lives. Who invented the candle? The candle, as a light source, has been known to mankind since ancient times, and its invention cannot be attributed to one particular person, since the development of this subject took place gradually in different cultures and epochs. The first prototypes of candles appeared in Egypt and Mesopotamia around 3000 BC, when people began using resin-soaked reeds or wicks placed in vessels with animal fat or vegetable oil. Such a simple light source made it possible to illuminate rooms and protect the fire from the wind, making it safer and more convenient to use inside houses and temples. In ancient Rome, candles were made from wax or animal fat. The Romans used them for religious rituals, home lighting, and festive ceremonies. They made a wick from linen or cotton fibers, which they dipped into fat, allowing it to burn gradually and obtain a stable flame. With the development of technology in the Middle Ages, beeswax candles appeared in Europe. This material was cleaner and burned more slowly, emitting less smoke and unpleasant odor compared to animal fat. Beeswax made it possible to create candles of various sizes and shapes, which were used in churches, monasteries, and wealthy homes. It was expensive, so the general population continued to use candles made of tallow or a mixture of wax and fat. In Asia, China, and Japan also used their own types of candles. For example, in China, candles were invented from soy wax and wood fat, and wicks were made from reeds or paper. These materials made it possible to create stable flames and a variety of decorative shapes that were used in religious rituals and home lighting. In the 17th and 18th centuries, candle manufacturing techniques continued to improve. Methods of bleaching wax, improving the wick, and controlling the uniformity of combustion have appeared. Grenier candles for urban life, theaters, festive events, and street lighting have begun to be mass-produced in Europe. With the advent of paraffin wax in the 19th century, candle production became even more efficient. Paraffin is obtained from oil and coal, and it burns cleanly, without a strong odor, and its use has reduced the price of candles, making them accessible to almost all segments of the population. At that time, the first candle factories appeared. Sizes and shapes were standardized, and wicks were improved, which made it possible to obtain a stable flame and long-lasting combustion. Grenier. With the development of electricity, candles ceased to be the main source of light, but they retained their cultural, decorative, and ritual value. Today, candles are used to create an atmosphere in religious ceremonies, celebrations, and ceremonies, as well as an element of interior design. They are made of various materials: beeswax, paraffin, soy or palm wax, and can have various shapes, flavors, and decorative elements. Thus, the candle does not have one specific inventor. Its creation took place gradually, starting with reeds soaked in fat in ancient times, and continued through the use of animal fat, beeswax, and paraffin in different eras. The contribution of many cultures and craftsmen has allowed us to develop this simple but vital object into the form we know today. Compact, safe, decorative, and functional, capable of creating light, warmth, and atmosphere in the home and on holidays.